Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And boy, do we have some potentially very troubling news that we need to talk about today. So, as you have probably already heard, reports of the sale and private acquisition of EA, the American video game mega publisher, have officially been confirmed. That's right, EA, Electronic Arts, is officially being sold to private investors in what is being called the single largest private investment buyout in history. Electronic Arts, the company responsible for some of the biggest and most well known and well loved titles in video game history, titles like Madden NFL, Plants vs. Zombies, and of course, the game that we're all here to talk about, Battlefield 6, is being sold to private investors to the tune of 55 billion with a B dollars. That's right, $55 billion. Understandably, this has led to a lot of conversation and, of course, speculation about what's going to happen with some of these franchises in EA's portfolio. Most importantly, of course, Battlefield 6, which is set to release in less than 2 weeks. But before we get caught up in the doom and gloom, let's just take a look at the facts. Let's see if we can't figure out exactly what's going on here. We're going to take a look at who is buying EA, what sort of companies have they invested in or bought in the past, and most importantly, what has happened with those prior investments? Where are those companies that they have bought previously? Maybe by taking a look at this, we'll at least be able to make some sort of educated guess when it comes to speculating about what the potential future might be for games like Battlefield 6. All right, so first and foremost, of course, the primary question that we need to answer is who is buying EA and why? Well, the partnership responsible for this buyout consists of 3 different private investment firms. Those 3 investment firms consist of PIF, or the Private Investment Fund for the nation of Saudi Arabia. This is, of course, probably the one that you've heard the most about. The second company is a company called Silver Lake. They're based in Menlo Park, California. And the third and final investment firm is a company called Infinity Group, and they're based in Miami, Florida. So who exactly are these companies? Well, PIF, or the Private Investment Fund, as mentioned, is the sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia. This is one of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world, and its portfolio includes Uber. According to the PIF website, the fund has about $925 billion worth of assets under its management. Now, the PIF also has an exclusive gaming division called Savvy Games. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But first, moving on to Silver Lake. Silver Lake is a private investment company founded by Glenn Hutchins and Roger McNamee in 1999. You might recognize the name Roger McNamee. He is a relatively famous musician. You've probably heard one of his songs. It's called It's 420 Somewhere. And he is also the co-founder of another private investment firm called Elevation Partners, which was one of the really early investors in Facebook. Silver Lake's portfolio includes companies like Dell, sports marketing company Learfield, and weight loss company Noom. As I mentioned earlier, Silver Lake is headquartered in Menlo Park, California. Silver Lake has also been in the headlines recently as the private equity company involved in the preliminary deal to purchase the U.S. assets of TikTok. As you probably are aware, there's been some legislation passed that says that TikTok needs to be owned primarily by an American company in order to continue to operate in the United States, and Silver Lake is the company involved in that acquisition. And finally, we move on to Affinity Partners. Affinity Partners is an investment firm that was founded in 2021 by Jared Kushner. I think he's Donald Trump's son-in-law. It is an investment company based in Miami, Florida, and they focus on investing in companies based in the United States and Israel. All right, so like we already mentioned, basically these 3 investment firms are sort of combining together for this buyout. But from everything that I've read, and I guess the way that I'm understanding it, it really does seem like the PIF, or the Saudi Arabian Private Investment Fund, is probably going to be responsible for the lion's share of this investment. And it's also important to note that apparently the Saudi Arabian PIF already owned 9.9% of EA's outstanding public stock. And they're going to roll that ownership over into this leveraged buyout. So that's part of their initial investment. They're counting that 9.9% that they already owned. In addition to that, there's going to be roughly $36 billion in equity or cash that's being provided in combination by the three investment firms. And then finally, to make up the difference, roughly $20 billion in leveraged debt that's being provided by JP Morgan Chase. And this $20 billion in debt is important. Why is it important? Well, people like this don't go into debt. They don't go $20 billion into debt, especially without some kind of plan to make that debt up and then turn it into profit. So the question that we're really trying to answer is, how are they planning on squeezing $20 billion out of EA as fast as humanly possible so that they can turn this investment into a profit? And of course, this is where the speculation comes in, right? And look, I'm no business expert, but the way that I understand it, historically, in situations like this, there's normally two different ways that this can go. The first way that this can go is that sometimes private investment firms will come in and they will buy out publicly traded companies, and then they will basically dismantle and strip mine those companies, sell off all of the different assets and intellectual properties for as much as humanly possible, and then at the very end of it, sell off the shell of the company for whatever's left. This of course, destroys the company, and it's unfortunately a pretty common thing that happens. However, this is where it becomes important for us to understand who these companies are. And that's why we're talking about the individual companies here, because the question then becomes, are these investment companies the types of investors who are known to pull off this sort of a strip mining scheme? And fortunately, when it comes to these three investment firms, that doesn't seem to be the case. As we've already mentioned, Silver Lake is heavily invested in technology, and Roger McNamee, one of the co-founders of Silver Lake, has a long history in investing in technology and for those companies that he's invested in to do very well. So that definitely bodes well for our situation. And then, of course, we have the Saudi Arabia PIF, who, fortunately for us, also happens to be heavily invested in technology and specifically in games. So the Saudi Arabia PIF also has significant investments in gaming giants such as Nintendo, Take-Two, Activision Blizzard, Capcom, Nexon, and Koei Tecmo. This is all managed through their division called the Savvy Games Group. Remember, I mentioned just a couple minutes ago the Savvy Games Group and said we'd talk more about them in just a minute. Well, it's time to talk about Savvy Games Group. All right, so who is Savvy Games Group? Well, basically, Savvy Games Group is a subsidiary of the PIF, or a smaller group or company inside of the PIF. So you can think of Savvy Games Group and the PIF basically as the same people. It's just that Savvy Games Group is the division inside of the PIF that manages all of the PIF's investments when it comes to games. So why does that matter to us? Well, it seems like Savvy Games Group are going to be the people directly responsible for the management of EA after this acquisition goes through. So EA will continue to operate as its own company with the CEO staying in place. He's going to stay where he is, but basically, instead of having a board of directors, which is what we used to have when they were a publicly traded company, instead of having a board of directors, we're going to have Savvy Games Group. So Savvy Games Group is going to be calling the shots in the future. They will be managing everything that happens with EA moving forward after this acquisition takes place. However, fortunately for us, this acquisition isn't actually going to go through until Q1 2027. That's the fiscal first quarter of 2027. Now, the financial calendar is different than the normal calendar. So, this actually means that if everything goes through, they still have regulatory hurdles and they have to get all of this stuff approved, but it's very much likely looking like it's going to be approved. So, if all of this stuff goes through, it looks like this investment group, or Savvy Games Group really, will take possession of EA in September of 2026. That's a little bit less than a year from now. So it does seem like, at least for the immediate future, there's nothing to get too excited or worried about. The launch of Battlefield 6 is probably going to go exactly as planned. Things are going to play out exactly the way that we were hoping they were going to play out. And then a year from now, Savvy Games Group is going to take possession of Electronic Arts. So what does that mean for us? Well, fortunately, as we have already established, it does not seem like these companies are buying EA to dismantle it, right? So a year from now, Battlefield 6 isn't going to be pulled out from under us and we're going to be left high and dry. We're still going to be playing the game. We're just going to have a different group of people in charge of that game, looking to profit off of it. Now, based on the catalog of games in Savvy Games Group collection at this moment, it does seem like they are pretty focused highly on microtransactions. So we might be likely to see some pretty aggressive microtransactions introduced into Battlefield and some of the other EA games, but that's really nothing new to EA. We might just see some more aggressive microtransactions. But the most important thing to keep in mind and remember is this, right? From everything that we can gather, these investment firms and Savvy Games Group, they are buying Electronic Arts because they want to profit off of EA's intellectual properties. So, as the people who consume those intellectual properties, the best thing that we can do is just to continue doing what we're doing, continue to be supporters of the IPs, and continue to be vocal about what we expect from these IPs. We have a new group of bigwigs. We have a new C-suite at the top, and we need to tell the people sitting in that C-suite, if they want to profit off of us, if they want to profit off of our dollars in these games, well, we have a voice in how they are going to be able to do that. We can tell them what we want, what we don't want, what we expect, and what's unacceptable. So just continue to be vocal, be more vocal than ever before, send a clear message about what it is that we expect from these games, and we just show them, if you want to profit, here's how you can profit. Here's what we accept, here's what we don't accept. And basically just hope for the best, right? Only time will tell. So just hang in there, stay positive, and we just got to see what happens. But, you know, the silver lining, I guess, is that it does appear as though nothing is going to dissolve, nothing is going to be swept out from under us. It's just a different group of owners. But anyway, like I said, only time will tell. But let me know what you think about it. Is this the end of the world? Is it all doom and gloom? Let me know in the comments down below how you feel about this acquisition. Does it change your plans for Battlefield 6? It doesn't change mine. I'm going to just try and remain positive, try and remain vocal. I'm going to use my little tiny platform here, speak out as much as I can, and just keep proceeding in the direction that I was proceeding. But again, let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so very much. I do truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, give me a like, comment, subscribe, maybe possibly even share it. I would truly appreciate it. Also, stop by and see me on Twitch. It is the place to be. I'm streaming all the time. Check the schedule. I stream weekdays, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I stream in the evenings. I stream all different times. So stop by, see me on Twitch. I would absolutely be stoked to have you there. So stop in, drop a line in the chat when you get there. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next one real soon.